Much beauty in being black. And that's the thing that I guess I get emotional about because I've always known that. I've always been proud to be black. Never wanted to be nothing else. Loved everything about it. Just it's such beauty in black people.
Hey, what happened? What happened? Hey, what happened? Hey, what happened? Tell her what happened.
Peace, Oakland. The city of Oakland is dying for leadership. And once again, after what should have been a weekend filled with love, celebration, and beautiful weather, Oakland experienced yet another mass shooting. This one claimed the lives of two young people, Marquise Martin, age 25, and Leticia Bobo, age 33. Leticia Bobo was a beloved teacher, a singer, and a poet. She was likely at the club that night to perform. Now, by all accounts, neither of these two young people were the targets of this deadly shooting. They were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. And in Oakland, California, that's becoming a disturbingly common way to die. Now, here's something that you likely didn't hear in the news, and we all know why. The city of Oakland may bear some responsibility for what happened that night. You see, the venue, formerly known as the Lava Lounge and Golden Bull, now operating as the Easy Lounge, does not have a valid liquor license. It also does not have the extended cabaret permit, which is required to operate a late-night entertainment venue. And yet, it was open. Not just open and operating 1 block from Oakland City Hall on First Friday. Now, the shooting happened after 3 a.m. Venues in Oakland are supposed to be closed at 2 a.m. So the obvious question is, how was an illegal nightclub operating past 3 a.m. just 1 block away from City Hall? That's not a small oversight. That is not a paperwork issue. That is a failure of governance. Now, my sources tell me that inspectors have been discouraged from taking enforcement actions against downtown businesses by the city attorney's office, run by Ryan Richardson, who many of you know I am not exactly a big fan of. Now, if that's true, and if I were one of the families of these two murdered young people, I would be asking the city of Oakland some very serious questions. Because if the city knowingly allowed an illegal venue to operate into the early morning hours, then the city may bear partial responsibility for what happened inside. Now, OPD recovered multiple guns at the scene, and if you just watched the video we played earlier, you can see just how brazen the shooting was. People exchanging gunfire in the middle of a crowded club. It's tragic. But what makes it even more tragic is this. Oakland, California is one of the most beautiful places on earth. Last weekend alone, we had multiple incredible events across the city. First Friday, Fan Fest, packed, music, art, people everywhere. And for a few hours, Oakland felt like Oakland again. But after the crowds dispersed, fights broke out in the streets, and the night ended with yet another mass shooting. And every time this happens, someone pops up with the same tired talking point. Well, Oakland was more dangerous in the 90s. Yes, Oakland was more dangerous in the 90s. But in the 90s, we had violent drug wars over lucrative drug turfs. Today, the cartels control the market. So yes, there's less bloodshed over territory. We simply replace those deaths with many more fentanyl overdoses that nobody wants to talk about. Now, here's something else that people forget. Back in the 90s, the city didn't look like an open-air landfill. Back in the 90s, we didn't have RV encampments leaking sewage and oil into the streets. Back in the 90s, we didn't have trash piling up across entire neighborhoods. We also didn't have the visible collapse of just basic city services. Our senior centers were open, Lake Merritt was popping, the libraries were open, our parks were places for children, not hangouts for junkies and vagrants. So if we're going to make comparisons, let's make the full comparison. And please, stop the cope. Stop pretending that everything's fine because it's not. Oakland is dying under failed leadership, and here we are again, another election year. We'll be choosing a new mayor. We'll probably see a charter amendment on the ballot. And right now, of course, on schedule, there's yet another tax increase for voters to approve in June. The services decline and our streets fall apart. Crime goes up, and the solution from City Hall is always the same. Give us more money. At this point, Oakland taxpayers are basically in an abusive relationship with our own government. Baby, I know I wasted the last tax increase, but this time it'll be different, trust me. And what's more, the more I expose what's happening in this city, the more I realize something very uncomfortable. Information alone only goes so far. So yes, sunlight is the best disinfectant. Yes, exposing corruption matters. But if a city becomes so paralyzed by grief, fear and apathy and exhaustion that no serious person is willing to step forward and run for mayor, then information alone won't save us. Now, I can't do everything, and no, I am not running for mayor this year. So someone else needs to step up. Someone with the courage to run on a real platform of cleaning out the progressive parasites in City Hall who are destroying Oakland. The people deserve someone real to vote for, someone who would take the mountains of information already out there and actually use it. Expose these failed leaders, challenge them, and beat them. Because the truth is, saving Oakland is not some impossible mystery. We know what the problems are. We know who caused them. And we know exactly what needs to change. What we're missing is courage. And right now, courage is in very short supply in Oakland. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And remember to share this video to all of your social media platforms. It's the best way to get the message out. Now let's get into it. Rest in peace again to those two young people who passed away. So I want to share another video real quick. Another post, from the amazing Keisha, a mother who lives in Deep East Oakland. Keisha says, reality check, a 35 political career from a California legislature to Congress may come with accolades, but a long resume and name recognition alone will not save Oakland. There appears to be a false narrative that a long political resume and name recognition will somehow fix the very serious issues facing Oakland. Some voters may have believed that experience alone would turn this city around. She don't really have experience. But Oakland deserves more than a name or a legacy. At this point, continuing to push the idea is tone deaf to the reality residents are living every day. Meanwhile, many people will simply blame the club for this tragedy. Yes, the business may hold some responsibility, but the conversation cannot stop there. The families of the victims should seriously consider legal action against the city of Oakland as well. When elected officials are repeatedly warned about public safety risks and fail to act, ignore dangerous conditions, or allow ongoing problems to continue, that goes beyond politics. It becomes negligence. Add in what I just told you guys, and yeah, I encourage you to follow Keisha and read the rest of this post. There's some redundancy here, but pretty much she's on point. And it ends with, the people of Oakland deserve leadership that prioritizes real safety over political narratives. And if that responsibility was neglected, the families who suffered unimaginable loss have every right to demand accountability, including from the city itself. I agree. I absolutely agree with this. So what does that mean for us taxpayers? Because besides the information I just gave you, and I want to go into that license real quick, just so you understand what I'm talking about. Here is the license from the address, which used to be the Golden Bull. There is no active license. There is no name for this new location, Easy Lounge. And I've confirmed that they do not have a current liquor license. They also do not have a cabaret license. So how are they operating? Anyway, let's move on to the next point I wanted to make here. Now, the city of Oakland is now claiming to have a surplus. And I think a month ago now, they presented the fourth quarter revenue report that we've been waiting on. And the main takeaways is, if you look here, it says that we have an operating surplus of $73.6 million. Now, I have a little video to play for you before I move on to my next point from the Oakland report about this alleged surplus. Pay close attention and you may learn something.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are digging into a really puzzling situation unfolding in Oakland, California. It's a story about a city surplus that, well, might not be what it appears to be, and it involves a new tax that could hit every single homeowner. All right, let's just jump right into the heart of the matter because this is the paradox we need to unpack. How on earth can the city of Oakland be telling its residents two completely opposite stories about its finances at the exact same time? It just doesn't add up. So on one side, you have this big announcement back in February of a $73.6 million surplus. Sounds great, right? But on the other side, the city is still operating under an official declaration of extreme fiscal necessity. A surplus and a state of emergency at the same time? You have to ask yourself, what is actually going on with the city's money? To really get this, we've got to go back a bit to the union contracts that were signed in September of 2025. This, right here, is where the whole thing kicks off. So, right out of the gate, those contracts handed out over $10 million in cash bonuses to union employees. And that money? It came directly from taxpayers. But believe me, that was just the start. Now here is the real kicker. An even more substantial amount of money, we're talking almost $15 million in raises, was also put on the table. But this one had a catch. This payout was contingent. It would only get triggered if and only if the city officially declared a budget surplus at the end of the fiscal year on June 30th. And that brings us right back to our big question. The city's been forecasting deficits. So how did they suddenly conjure up a surplus just in time to maybe trigger these raises? Well, the evidence in the public record suggests it's not because the economy is booming, it's because of some very clever financial engineering. So take a look at this breakdown because it's pretty revealing. This surplus wasn't built on things like growing tax revenue. No, a full 60% of it came from one-time cash infusions. And another 31%, that came from raiding restricted funds, something the city is only allowed to do because it's declared that state of extreme fiscal necessity. You see, the emergency itself is what lets them move money around to create this surplus on paper. This timeline really lays it all out, doesn't it? You can see the dominoes falling one by one. The contracts in September create the need for a surplus. The ongoing emergency gives them the tool to create it. Then, boom, a new parcel tax campaign launches. And if that passes in June, it basically locks in the surplus and pulls the trigger on that $14.9 million in raises. So that leads to a pretty obvious question, right? If the city needs more tax money, why are public employee unions spending their own money to get this tax measure on the ballot? Why wouldn't the city just run the campaign itself? Well, the answer seems to be a very handy loophole in California law. See, if the city council puts a special tax on the ballot, it needs a two-thirds supermajority to pass. That's a really high hurdle. But if it's run as a citizen-sponsored initiative, it only needs a simple majority, 50% plus one vote. That is a much, much easier target to hit. Okay, let's do what you're supposed to do in these situations. Let's follow the money. We'll start with who's paying for all this, and then we'll see who stands to profit. First up, who is funding this citizen-sponsored tax campaign? The campaign finance records are crystal clear. Public employee unions have already poured over $400,000 into this thing. And who's the biggest donor? SCIU Local 1021, which wrote a check for $200,000. Now, have a look at this. This chart shows who gets the money if that surplus trigger is pulled. And would you look at that? SCIU Local 1021, the top donor to the tax campaign, is also set to get the biggest pay raises, by far. $12.5 million in raises for its members. You see the same pattern with the other major donors. The campaign is also being pretty slick with its wording to sell this to voters. The ballot measure literally claims it will result in lower taxes for most homeowners. But the text of the measure suggests a disingenuous rhetorical sleight of hand, because even though it fiddles with an existing tax, the bottom line is still a major new property tax for homeowners. So let's cut to the chase. What's the real cost here? If this whole thing passes in June, what's the final price tag for the taxpayers in Oakland? And here it is. This is the bottom line. Of the $34 million this new tax would bring in every year, almost half of it, we're talking 44 cents of every single new tax dollar, would go straight to paying for those triggered union raises. For the unions funding this campaign, it's an absolutely incredible deal. They put up a bit over $400,000 to help get the tax passed, and in return, their members get nearly $15 million in raises in just the first year. That's a 3,600% return on their investment. So all of this leaves us with one last question to think about. When a city's surplus actually depends on a state of emergency to exist, and it can only be maintained by a new tax hike, which is bankrolled by the very people who stand to gain millions from it, is that really a sign of a city in good financial health, or is it a masterful piece of financial engineering?
Oakland Report is a charitable, nonprofit organization based in beautiful Oakland, California. Our mission is to make truth more accessible to all Oakland residents. We rely on our readers' financial support to continue our work.
So you heard it there. It's in plain daylight. They're playing in our faces. And they just think, of course they're going to pass this tax because 60% of Oakland voters are renters, and this parcel tax doesn't affect them. But you know what? I say it's time we stand up and beat this tax. We're going to get into that in a future episode about what we should do to fight back against this tax increase. And we should fight back against this tax increase. But I want to remind everybody something real quick. Here is Measure NN that we passed in 2024. This is one of the measures that they're rating from to claim that we have a surplus. I want to remind you what was promised. What was promised in Measure NN was a budget for 700 sworn officers. Oakland is currently under 600. We're in like 570 range, I believe, today. So for 700 sworn officers during a fiscal year, the collection of the parcel tax would be suspended if we failed to budget for that many officers. So we're not budgeting for that many officers, but yet we're rating this parcel tax that we were lied to about. The unions also paid for most of this parcel tax, and then we're using this money from this parcel tax to claim that we have a surplus to pay the unions even more money. And somehow our politicians are selling us with a straight face, and so many of you just eat it up. You see Bob Lally or any of these people, you like wave and smile and act like they're your fucking friends. They're not your friends. They don't care about the Oakland's taxpayers. We need someone to stand up. We need someone to stand up. I don't think it's going to be one of our current legislators on council. I think there's only one person on council, Ken Houston, who's not bought and sold by the union. Maybe Charlene Wang, too. I think everybody else received SCIU 1021 contribution. Maybe Charlene did as well. I don't quite recall. They planned in our faces with our public safety. We're supposed to have a minimum 700 officers due to Measure NN, but of course we don't have that because of our financial emergency. But yet, they're claiming we have a surplus. Yeah, man. I don't know what to say. It's like beyond words sometimes. I'm getting tired. I don't know how many more words I can say. I don't know how much more energy I have to continue to daylight the freaking obvious. We will continue to do it. We believe in Oakland. We can't give it up. But come on, man. This is shameful. This is shameful. So yeah, I'm gonna end on a good note. Or bittersweet note. The spoken word of a young lady, Leticia Bobo, who passed away, lost her life in the city of Oakland, and it could have been prevented. We should have cared more, but now we have another young person dead in the city.
Light. Follow this stream, where the well of water flows, and following this current you are led to a river, where this dead sea of salt becomes clean, refreshing. Breathe. And see the light that surrounds you. The fish swim freely, and the fruit grows routinely, and all you need is to go. Where this river flows and brings life. Be light. Revive. Beautiful. You are now out of the land of dry bones, and have found this river that flows. But in order to proceed, I must perceive if you can see the land in which you used to live still surrounds you. The land of dry bones was outside your comfort zone. So, I ask you a question. When was the last time you looked around you and saw the dry bones?
Peace, Oakland. Believe in this city. We can do this, but someone's got to step up. Someone has got to step up and help us lead our way out of this darkness. And it's not going to be anyone currently that I see in City Hall. I just don't see it happening. If so, they will be doing it already. Someone's got to buck the system. Someone has to call all of this BS out for what it is. And someone has to do it who's serious enough that can raise the money to actually win. That person does exist in Oakland. And you know who you are. If you're listening to this, step up. Have the courage of conviction to make your action match your ambition and get this city back on track. I believe in Oakland, and hopefully you do too. Peace, Shaw. I love you.
Yo, I swear it's only up from here. Yo, I swear it's only up from here. Yo, I swear it's only up from here. Yo, I swear it's only up from here.